Good morning, 22 of Cheshbon. Hayom Yom, today's word from the Frierdiker Rebbe. One of the teachings of the Maggid of Mezrich, heard by the Alter Rebbe when he was in Mezrich for the first time, in the late summer of 1764 until after Pesach, 1765. Yeah, he spent time with the Maggid of Mezrich. So we heard the following. So Hashem says, I have made the heaven and the earth. And the word, you see the word parenthesis, Anoichi. And that's a Rosh Tevis for Ani, I, Nafshi, myself, Kosiv, I wrote. My very essence. This is one of the words from which we learn that the essence of God, the deepest intentionality of God is here in the earth. I, my very self. Not just an effusion from myself, but my very self. I've made the earth, and upon it I've created man. So as he says in shorthand, Anoichi is he who is the true I. What is the true I? The true I is that which is the level of Hashem, which is unknown to and concealed from even the loftiest emanations. Even any entity in the world of Atzilus, the world of emanation, can't grasp the I itself. Even in that higher world, the God has to enclose, and that's the subject that we're in, right? Various methods of enclosement, of tzimtzum, of contraction, of concealing. He conceals his blessed essence through numerous condensations. That's a translation of tzimtzum, condensations, right? You have a vapor, you can't grab a hold of it, but when it condenses in water, now you can, it's tangible. So blessed numerous condensations to give rise to the emanations and the creatures. And these eminent creatures are called in the spiritual realm seraphim, chayot, alfanim, different levels of angels, and worlds beyond number. Through countless condensations, countless tzimtzumim, I made this physical world, and upon it I created barati, I created man. Man is the end purpose of creation, and barati, I've created, is the end purpose of man. Barati, I created, has the same numerical equivalent of 613. It's a secret, right? Unlike I have created itself. That word you can see because of its numerical value for what was the creation done for the sake and the intention of the 613 mitzvos. As the book of the Pardes, Moshe Kodavera quotes Sefer Habahir, said, this is the quote, the attribute of chesed spoke, said the attribute of chesed, kindness, before the Holy One, blessed be He, Master of the universe. Since the days of Abram has been on earth, I have not had to perform any task. This is the midah of chesed, God's attribute of chesed. Says, I'm out chesedet, I'm out kindness by the chesed of Avram. Because Avram stands and serves in my stead. What does that mean? That Avram stands instead of the attribute of mercy. Because Avram, a soul clothed in a body, occupying himself with hospitality to strangers as a means of disseminating the idea of God in this lowly world, is actually on a higher plane and level than the attribute of kindness itself in Atzilus. Remember, the beginning is wedged where? In the end. Not in the supernal being, not even in the supernal midos. God's attributes, as they are in himself, are only become channels for the attribute of kindness down here on earth. And where it's down here on earth, that's where the anoichi, that's where the beginning, the real essence of God dwells down here on planet Earth in physical things. And that's what he says. The idea of God in this lowly world is actually on a higher plane and level than the attribute of kindness of Atzilus. So the complaint, right, the midah of chesed, complaint before Hashem, is an expression of envy of Avram's service by the attribute of kindness of Atzilus. And this basically is the subject of today's Tanya. Today's Tanya, Lessons in Tanya, Volume 5, page 218, and Akuti Amorim, yes, Akuti Morim. Here, the very bottom line of page Kuf Nun, opposite page 298. So we've been learning all about condensations, right? That's what he uses the word, condensations. We've had various masholim for this. We've had hairs a couple of days back, right? The hair which comes from the beard or the skull, the hair. If you take the one from the face, we've talked about it as a hair which comes from a punim was panemius. So from the deepest levels comes out this little hair, the most condensed, the most contracted, right? And yet that's where essence of God is, on the principle that the essence is wedged specifically in the end. So we had hairs, we had garments, and most recently we had pillars, right? Channels, hollow channels by which the highness of God becomes lowness. Another metaphor for Tzimtzum. All metaphors for Tzimtzum. The sod of the Tzimtzum, the secret of the Tzimtzum, why it's a secret, is because it contains in it the answer to the question, how does the infinite become invested in finite? Two opposites, right? This is the sod, this is the secret of the Tzimtzum, which is able to bridge that gap from infinite to finite. Okay. This is what's written in the Holy Zohar, bottom of the page. In Parshas Pekudei, Daf Reish Chov Tes Amud Beis in the Zohar. If you happen to have your copy of the Zohar next to you, you can open it there. And what does it say? The Inun Avdin Tovim. These that we've been talking about, that bring the essence of God down into this world, are good deeds. Good meaning the mitzvos. Excuse me. The holy things that Hashem has commanded us to do. Good deeds. The Avir Banosh that a person does, as he mashke minahor the ziva ilo levusha, as he draws out through the mitzvahs the supernal light into garments, our condensations, contractions, our pillars, our hairs, the garments by which essence comes down into physicality. As he beholds in the Benoyim Hashem, he beholds the sweetness of Hashem. Beholding the sweetness of Hashem is the auras, the rays that are coming out from Hashem, which is in the higher worlds. So the higher worlds have access to rays of light, but I'm saying that in a way to say only rays. No transformations are going up in the upper world. The transformations is where the rubber meets the road, essence down here below in mitzvahs. The Gam the Hasam Ma'ya Began Eden, even though the Zohar now is speaking, these wonderful emanations are going on Began Eden Atachton, even in the lower level of Gan Eden, Shehalabushim Shom, where the garments there, because there is some degree of contraction, like this, to be able to see a ray of light. Remember the marshal I always use about light passing through a prism, or let's take the light of the sun. You can't look at it directly, but you want the light, and you need the light, and the planet needs the light, and we need light to live, sunlight to live. So it has to go through a garment, which we call levushim. And even there, if you're going to have a ray of light up in Olam Haba, a ray of light, there has to be some degree of concealment, because you can't stare at essence. Essence is unseeable. Shum over there or anywhere, you can't see it because it's just too bright. But it gets packaged in ha-mitzvahs, the light. And when we do mitzvahs, there is a light which emanates from the mitzvahs of deed that we do, mamish. Aval b'gan eden elyon, in the supernal level, the higher level that we often speak of, two levels. There are myriad levels of Gan Eden, but we speak about the lower Gan Eden and the higher Gan Eden. Halavushim hem mirausa the kavana de liba. The lights which are emitted there are from the intentions, the intentionality, the kavanas of the heart, as a person occupies himself b'raisa in Torah, the tzaloisa and davening. Hashem, as the Zohar writes over there. So reha kavana, we've talked about mitzvahs. Loy tzricha kavana. Remember, mitzvahs do not need kavana. The deed is the most important thing. However, the quality of the mitzvah is definitely enhanced by the kavanah. So we don't want to too much second-rate kavanah, but in relation to deed, it's second-rated. But the kavanah, that the intentionality that one has, kavanah's oiski b'Torah, when one has intentionality, one is thinking and ruminating these kinds of kavanahs on the things that you're learning in Torah, and you're learning lishma for the sake of the Torah and not for any ulterior reason. Me'avos Hashem, he says you're learning because of love of Hashem. And then there's the mitzvah, you have the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, Ugam Kei Meklal Mitzvahs Ma'asiyos. And the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, even though you might think of it as sort of only learning cerebral, or intellectual, and sometimes people have some classes here and there, some people say, why do we need to learn all this esoteric stuff, this body of knowledge called Kabbalah, and because of this? Well, the answer is because it isn't just esoteric stuff. It's actually living spirituality that has the capacity to join with physicality and to inform the quality of the mitzvahs that you do, and in that saying, inform the quality and change the quality of your entire life, all the things that you occupy with. But there's the intentionality and there's the action, right? So when we talk about Talmud Torah, particularly, one learns it, Miklal Mitzvahs Ma'asiyos, and you should know that from the respect that one is using one's brain, one's physical brain, so it's in the category of Mitzvahs Ma'asiyos. The Kimisfoso, and especially when, as we're doing now, we bring the words of Torah and the thought and the mind of Torah into our mouths and move our lips and talk about them. Because it's established by our Chachamim that Yehudim is that thought alone doesn't do it. It says if you move your lips, that's considered doing. That's doing the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. And just thinking about it is not like speaking. It's not compared to speaking. You can't fulfill the mitzvah of learning Torah by just thinking about it. You have to bring it as we are into mouth. Similarly also in davening. And because there is, however, a certain advantage, right, of kavanah over dibur. Speech without kavanah, mitzvahs without kavanah, have a different and a certain lesser quality in terms of their feeling, their sincerity, etc. Nevertheless, even if you are totally insincere and you're just doing the mitzvah because, okay, here's a mitzvah, I'm doing it, and you have no kavanah about it at all, you're yotzi, because the deed is the main thing on the principle, again, that the lowest, the highest is invested in the lowest. But kavanah certainly has value. There's an advantage of kavanah, of the intentionality over the speech. So it goes both ways, right? The kavanah is secondary because you can't fulfill the mitzvah in only kavanah. But kavanah has an advantage in that there now becomes a certain power in the mitzvah, a certain feeling for the mitzvah. So there is a virtue of kavanah over speech, umaisa. But that advantage that kavanah has over doing is not because of itself. It's because that you are investing the will of God and you have a feel for the will of God being invested in this thing, which will change the quality of the mitzvah that you do. But the mitzvah is the most important thing. But it does have a certain quality, superior quality. As it says, we've learned in earlier places in Likutei Amorim, specifically in the first part of Likutei Amorim, Perek Lamed Ches, Berichas, at length, Ayin Sham, see over there. So we're in the middle, but this is today's Tanya. Today's Tanya. It's something that we're coming across right very often. I think in a certain way, you could say that the whole Tanya is really emphasizing the deed, the Masa HaMitzvah. Kavanah, yes, Kavanah changes the quality, but the quality of the mitzvah. And it's the mitzvah which is important. Mitzvah, as we've learned before, we've talked many times, the word tzavta, To command is to connect. Tzavta v'chibur. It's the physical or mental. Well, we have physical mitzvahs, we have speech mitzvahs, we have mitzvahs of the mind, right? But those are the most important thing. And those are the channels which bring down the deepest level of Hashem. Not just the excitement, but the essence of Hashem. And that's where we're pausing today, in the middle of this chapter. Any comments or questions? I mean, it's interesting to me as we're doing this, how many times and in how many different ways the Alter Rebbe tells us, just do it and it will change everything. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow. Just do it.